Everyone's replaceable, sweetheart, that's what he said. Right after I slid the HR form across his polished mahogany desk, right after I explained, calmly, politely, that I'd been here 5 years without a single sick day, with back-to-back A-plus reviews, and all I was asking for was a 5% raise to match inflation. He didn't even read it. Just pushed the paper back with one finger, smiled like I was a child asking for dessert before dinner, and then patted my arm. Full-on pat like I was a golden retriever who just barked budget forecasting. Then he laughed, loud enough to turn heads through the glass walls, looked over at our sales lead and said, "She's a good worker. But come on, they're all good, everyone's replaceable." I didn't blink, I didn't cry. I just stood there as his voice echoed in my ears like a punchline I didn't know I was the butt of. 5 years. 5 years of giving this company my weekends, my brain, my best ideas, my sleep. 5 years of eating lunch at my desk while he took golf calls on speakerphone like a suburban Gordon Gekko. He offered me a protein bar on the way out, one of those chalky meal replacement things from his drawer stash. Said, "Here, keep your energy up, Janet. Q4's brutal." I walked back to my desk without saying a word. Didn't toss the bar in the trash, didn't scream in the stairwell, didn't even slam the keyboard like Carl in accounting when someone moves his stapler. Just sat down and stared at the desktop background I hadn't changed in 3 years. It was a picture from the corporate retreat, me smiling mid-sunset, holding up a champagne glass after getting thanked for saving the Fortway account. They'd used that picture on the company's LinkedIn for weeks. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't angry. I was done. Done being polite, done shrinking, done waiting for someone to notice that I was the damn engine behind 70% of their revenue systems. So yeah, that was the day it all snapped. The day something inside me shifted. You know that click in your brain when someone says the wrong thing at the wrong time and your soul just goes, noted. Let's burn it all down professionally and with precision. And I know you're listening, maybe during your commute or while rage filing expense reports. If you've ever had a boss call you replaceable after you bled for a job, you get it. If this story hits even a little close to home, hit that like button and subscribe because apparently 95% of folks forget, and we've got more stories like this that'll make you feel very, very seen. Plus, it really motivates our team, which is replaceable, but only if they keep leaving the coffee pot empty. Anyway, that day, after the protein bar and the arm pat, I opened a folder tucked behind my old HR emails. It had one document in it. A document I'd written 3 years ago. A document that, in exactly 9 days, would bankrupt the man who laughed in my face. The document was titled, with all the charm and camouflage of corporate legalese, Supplemental Addendum B Workflow Authorization and Process Ownership Clause. You'd think it governed copier usage or vacation rollover with a name like that. That was the point. 3 years ago, back when the company was hemorrhaging clients faster than the breakroom fridge leaked water, I had pitched a new process, one I built from the ground up, designed to streamline data intake, reporting, and compliance in a way that made audits laughably easy and turned every other department into accidental fans of ops. I called it Janet Flow, half joking, until it stuck. I presented it to the leadership team like any other project, with mock-ups, projections, and a color-coded slide deck that made even the CFO nod. And when they said yes, I didn't just hand it over. I asked legal to sign off on a clause I wrote myself, buried in the fine print of implementation paperwork. It stated that the core workflow, its design logic, internal tooling, structure, and automated triggers, was licensed to the company for use but remained my intellectual property unless expressly renewed in writing on an annual basis. Back then, they were so desperate for a solution they probably would have signed a clause giving me naming rights to the office dog. Legal approved it. Probably assumed it was boilerplate, but it wasn't. And more importantly, it was never renewed. Not once in 3 years, that morning. Still humming from the slap of humiliation my CEO had dished out like it was casual Friday banter, I pulled open my archive drive. Navigated past old payroll disputes, vendor invoices, and my performance reviews that read like love letters to a system no one understood but desperately needed. There it was. Signed, dated, initialed by legal. No renewal attachments. Suddenly, that moment in his office didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a turning point. He hadn't just dismissed me. He declared himself too arrogant to check the paperwork that held his company together. I sat with that thought, really let it settle in my chest. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't invisible. I was holding the pin to the grenade he'd built his business around. And here's the beautiful, bitter irony. That same afternoon, I knew exactly who would be interested in seeing that document. Greystone Partners, our biggest competitor. The firm that lost 3 major accounts to us in the last 18 months because my workflow made us faster, cheaper, cleaner. The firm whose CEO once told me, over watered-down wine at a charity banquet, "If we ever lose to your team again, I'm just going to offer you a job." I found his direct line. Still had the number saved under Longshot from 2 years ago when I toyed with leaving and chickened out. I dialed. His assistant picked up, said he was booked until next week. I asked her to tell him one thing, I'm Janet from Atwell Group. I'd like to show him a document that could shift 70% of our shared market overnight. There was a pause. Then, can you be here by 3? Yes, I could. By the time I printed the addendum, changed into the emergency blazer I kept behind my door, and called a car, I wasn't even shaking. That was the moment shame gave way to strategy. I wasn't the admin girl anymore. I was the keystone, the buried clause, the checkmate move he never saw coming. The reception area at Greystone Partners smelled like money and eucalyptus. Big glass walls, muted grays, a front desk that could have doubled as a sushi bar. The kind of place where no one says, let me check, they just know. I stepped in with one folder tucked under my arm. No resume, no laptop, no backstory rehearsed. Just me. My favorite lipstick, applied in the Uber like war paint, and the document that could legally dismantle a company. His assistant was already standing. He's ready for you, Miss Carter. The CEO of Greystone, Nathan Reed, was waiting behind a desk that made my old bosses look like a garage sale find. He didn't get up. Just motioned to the chair across from him and said, I'm intrigued. I didn't waste time. I placed the folder down like a dealer at a blackjack table. Opened it, turned it to face him. Read that section. Page 3, clause 12. He arched a brow but didn't speak, just flipped, read. His eyes didn't move like someone skimming, they locked in line by line. The silence between us thickened until it hummed. Then he leaned back, tapped twice on the edge of the paper, and looked up. Agree. One word, that was it. No questions about my background. No request for references. No slideshows or job titles or salary talks. Just agree. I exhaled, not relief, confirmation. He slid the folder back like it was a signed treaty. I'll have my legal team draft the licensing agreement. You'll retain intellectual property, full oversight, and discretion over who has access. We'll enforce it. And, I asked, already knowing the answer. And we'll send a cease and desist the moment you say go, retroactive to the date of license expiration, which, by his calculation, he already knew was nearly 24 months ago. He wasn't playing catch-up. He was already 10 moves in. Are you prepared to follow through? He asked. Because once this starts, it won't stop until they hit bottom. I looked him dead in the eye. He called me replaceable. He built his entire infrastructure on the process I designed and never renewed the right to use. Nathan didn't smile, but something in his expression softened, like recognition. You'll be offered a formal position, of course. Title TBD, compensation very flexible. But for now, he paused, then handed me a pen. We start with control, and just like that, it wasn't about a raise anymore. It wasn't about respect or recognition or even revenge. It was about leverage. About taking the system I built and deciding who got to touch it. I walked out of Greystone's headquarters with no business card, no deal memo, no press release. Just the weight of something I hadn't felt in years. Power, real power. And the certainty that when my CEO next tried to show off his empire, it would collapse one clause at a time. I gave it a week. 7 days of calm, calculated silence, while Greystone's legal team built the framework around my licensing claim like engineers reinforcing a dam right before a flood. They were good, too good. They'd sent me a draft contract within 48 hours. By day 5, the cease and desist letter was reviewed, printed, and sealed in an envelope with a timestamp and a do not open until sticky note slapped across it. All that was left was my exit. It had to be clean. No sparks, no drama, no reason to look twice at the woman walking out the door. So I wore gray, the dullest blouse I owned, pulled my hair back into a low bun, wiped the red lipstick, and deleted every trace of personality from my posture. I booked a 9:15 a.m. meeting with HR, drafted a resignation letter so neutral it could have passed for a weather report, cited personal growth opportunities and gratitude for the past 5 years, even thanked them for the invaluable experience. The whole thing could have been written by ChatGPT with a Xanax prescription. I slid it across the HR desk, smiled faintly, and waited. They blinked. Janet, you're leaving? Yes. Effective when? End of next week. Happy to assist with handover documentation. I watched them try to calculate what would be lost without me and fail because they'd never really understood what I did. That was the brilliance of it. I was the backbone, but I didn't look like one. No corner office. No direct reports. Just quiet systems, silent precision. They printed my exit paperwork. I signed with steady hands. Then I walked to my CEO's office. He was on a call, probably bragging about his new espresso machine to someone who didn't care. When he saw me, he held up one finger, wrapped the call in 30 seconds, and leaned back in his chair like a man about to humor a child asking for crayons. What's up, sweetheart? I'm resigning. He blinked once, then smiled. Taking a break, finally doing yoga like Karen? No, I've accepted an external opportunity. He waved a hand like I'd just said I was going to try goat cheese for the first time. You do what you gotta do. These kids these days, they'll work for half what we paid you. All the same certifications. I nodded once. Best of luck, you too. Maybe we'll poach you back someday on a budget. He laughed. I didn't. I walked out of his office, past his giant poster of a race car with speed wins in block letters, past the wall of photos from retreats and golf outings I was never invited to, and back to my desk. That afternoon, I began preparing the final handover doc. Just enough detail to look cooperative, not enough to hand them the map. I deleted every local copy of Janet Flow, disconnected my personal email from the backups I'd used as a failsafe, pulled my plants from the windowsill. By the time Friday hit, I had 3 thank you cards in my inbox, one awkward hug from finance, and a sugar cookie shaped like the company logo from HR. No suspicion. No hint. They thought I was walking away, but I wasn't. I was just stepping back so I could watch the fall from a better angle. It started with a hiccup. A Tuesday morning email from one of our mid-tier clients. A polite, corporate-scented request. Can you please provide the updated licensing confirmation for your workflow engine? Our procurement team is flagging a renewal discrepancy. That was the phrase that cracked the first tile. Renewal discrepancy. I read it from my phone while sipping coffee on the balcony of my new temporary apartment, which I'd rented under a different name just in case things got loud later. I didn't respond. I didn't forward it. I didn't even screenshot it. I just smiled and took another sip. By noon, 2 more messages trickled into my personal inbox. One from a former colleague in sales, subject line, Janet, quick query, workflow license, and another from the compliance officer, Robert, who had always seemed like the only person in the building who read more than his own email signature. Hey, hope you're well. Weird question, but do you happen to have a copy of the licensing doc for your system? Legal can't seem to locate the renewal. I figured maybe you filed it somewhere I don't have access to. No rush, just let me know. I stared at that one for a while, not because I was tempted to reply, but because I knew Robert. Robert didn't get spooked easily. If he was emailing me directly, skipping the new ops lead and pinging a former employee off record, it meant the ground was already shifting. By day 3, I was getting text messages. Hey Janet, sorry to bother you, but did you ever finalize the Q1 license? And do you remember if you were CC'd on the renewal email for Fort Way's contract? They're stalling payment. And my favorite from Carl in accounting, who always spoke like he was about to flee to Mexico. Did you encrypt something before you left? Because our auto-reporting system is outputting PDFs with headers in Spanish. They still had no idea what was happening. And at the helm of the ship, my old CEO, Captain Arrogance himself, still smiling, still brushing it off in meetings as a transition hiccup, telling staff that I was just admin-level support who made forms look pretty. He said that out loud, in front of people. Someone even posted it on Slack. And yet behind the scenes, I could feel the pressure building. One of our oldest clients, Bartwell Financial, froze their weekly data pull and refused to process invoices until they had licensing clarity. Another emailed Greystone, CCing my former CEO, to ask if the platform we'd built was compliant with ownership terms under industry code 74-9B. That wasn't random. That was coordinated. Greystone had begun whispering. I hadn't asked them to. I didn't need to. All I'd done was let them know which clients used my system and when their current license technically expired. Everything else, gravity. No cease and desist had been sent yet, not officially. This was just the rumble, the pre-quake shudder in the floorboards. But inside Atwell Group, they were scrambling, quietly, clumsily, blindly, trying to find files that didn't exist, renewal emails that were never written. As for me, I muted every thread and waited for the crack to split straight through the lobby. The official letter arrived on a Thursday, stamped, signed, delivered by courier. It was from Montrose Capital, the kind of client you don't just lose, the kind you bleed for. Legacy account, massive volume, the name we'd all whispered with reverence during onboarding like it belonged in a hymn. The letter was addressed to the CEO directly. 1. Fluff, just corporate doom phrased as politely as possible. Licensing validation required for all workflow systems currently in use. Deadline, 72 hours. Failure to provide proof of ownership or active license agreement will result in immediate contract suspension. In other words, show us the receipts or we cut the wire. They didn't even mention me by name, but they didn't have to. The moment the phrase workflow system landed on the conference table, I became the phantom in every room. I got the call within an hour, then a follow-up email, then a LinkedIn message. Janet, we'd appreciate your help clarifying a few documentation gaps. Janet, we believe you may have a version of the original license on file. Janet, we'd love to schedule a call to reconnect. No, no, and no. I didn't answer. I didn't blink. I just watched the wheels spin off the clown car. Inside Atwell Group, chaos bloomed like mold in summer heat. They pulled every archived folder, searched every shared drive, Dropbox, Google Doc, and paper file in the admin closet no one touched since Janine retired. And then they found it. The clause. Clause 12, page 3. Licensing of proprietary workflow system is valid for 12 months from date of last renewal. Non-renewal results in expiration of license and immediate forfeiture of usage rights. Initialed by legal. Signed by me, dated 3 years back. No renewal, no escape hatch, and that's when the screaming started. My old CEO, Mr. Replaceable, was reportedly seen in the Monday strategy call red-faced, pacing, waving the document around like it was a snake. Blamed the legal team first. Then the ops lead. Then, for some reason, IT. They tried to argue it was an oversight, that surely I wouldn't enforce it. that it was symbolic. The head of legal shut that down in 5 words. It holds up in court. Montrose Capital didn't flinch. Fortway followed suit, then Argo Partners. 3 major clients, all demanding license confirmation or immediate discontinuation of services. I was the license, and I was gone. They tried to pivot, tried to rebuild, tasked the junior ops analyst with creating a lightweight replica of the system. It crashed in test mode. Twice. Outputted gibberish and flagged the CFO's name in a fraud filter. They called again, this time from a different number. Janet, please, let's discuss options. You don't want to burn bridges. Funny. I didn't remember being offered that courtesy when I asked for 5%. The panic began to spread through the ranks. Someone forwarded me a screenshot from their Slack. Has anyone spoken to Janet? She didn't leave on bad terms, right? Did we renew with her? Guys, this is serious. If Montrose pulls out, Q4's gone. The rival CEO, Nathan, sent me a short message that day. Just a line, anytime you're ready. He meant the cease and desist, but I wasn't there yet, not yet. I wanted them to sweat. I wanted my old CEO to sit through meetings with sweat sliding down the back of his overpriced dress shirt while he explained, again and again, how the woman he called replaceable just took the company's spine with her. The spiral had begun, and I wasn't done turning. The first call came at 7:42 a.m. I was buttering toast. Blocked number, straight to voicemail. Janet, it's Richard. Just got your number from HR. Look, we've got a situation here. Some kind of misunderstanding around the licensing thing. Call me back when you get this, all right? Let's clear this up like professionals. I didn't respond. The second voicemail hit at 10:03 a.m., less calm. Okay, Janet, listen. Legal says there's this clause you wrote, and apparently it wasn't renewed. Look, I know you're smart, you're detailed, but I'm sure we can find a solution here. Let's not escalate this, yeah? I was doing yoga when that one landed, not because I'm a yoga person, because I like knowing I can hold a warrior pose while my former CEO spirals. By mid-afternoon, he'd left 4 more messages. The tone changed with each one. Voicemail 3, syrupy concern. We value your contributions. Really, we do. But this clause, honestly, it feels petty, Janet. This isn't you. Voicemail 4, cracked pride. You can't seriously intend to go through with this. Do you know what'll happen to the firm, to everyone who relied on you? Voicemail 5, panic. They're pulling out. Montrose is pulling out. That's 40% of Q3 projections gone. You need to get in touch right now. This is your responsibility too. Voicemail 6, begging. Janet, please, just talk to me. I'll sign whatever you want. Name your price. You want a promotion, your title, take mine. And then finally text, a single line, no punctuation, no greeting. Did you send this to Greystone? I stared at that one for a while. Just let it sit on the screen like a fly in the room. Then I opened my email, created a new message, addressed it to Nathan Reed's general counsel and the 2 attorneys managing my licensing transition. Attached 6 MP3 files. Subject line, voicemails, no body text, sent. There's something terrifyingly satisfying about realizing you no longer need to raise your voice, that you don't need to yell or justify or explain, that your silence alone creates meetings. They were collapsing now, not just because of the license, because their foundation had never been real. They built their revenue on my system, their contracts on my structure, and their reputation on my diligence, and never once thought to ask who owned the bedrock. Until now. Robert, the compliance guy, sent one last Hail Mary of an email. Subject line, out of options, body. Janet, if you're still monitoring these, just know I tried. I pushed them to renew last year. No one listened. If there's anything you'll consider doing, anything to slow this train down, I'd urge you to do it now. I didn't reply. I was already packed for my trip to Boston, where Greystone's official signing would take place. I booked a window seat. Sometimes you want to see things fall from 30,000 feet. The boardroom at Atwell Group had never seen that many suits in one place without a camera crew or catered shrimp. Emergency meeting, Friday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. The kind with a subject line so sterile it could double as an autopsy report. Urgent compliance review. Attendance mandatory. The CEO, Richard, was already seated when I arrived, sweating lightly in his collar, trying to play calm in front of a firing squad. Except this wasn't his meeting. It belonged to Montrose Capital. Their lead counsel had requested it, demanded it actually, after receiving no satisfactory evidence of license ownership and a long string of excuses dressed up as clarifications. So now they were here, along with their legal team, and 2 compliance auditors from Fortway, and 1 government rep, silent, stone-faced, observing everything like a man who'd been warned not to blink. And Nathan Reed, CEO of Greystone, leaned back in his chair like he'd rented the whole floor, his attorneys flanking him with leather briefcases and the smug composure of men who knew how the movie ended. I was the last to enter, not called by Richard, not summoned by the board. I was there because Montrose requested a representative from the originating licensee of the disputed system. That was me. I walked in without a bag, no laptop, just a slim folder, 1 sheet of paper inside, and the knowledge that I didn't need anything else. Richard blinked when he saw me. His jaw worked like it was trying to form words without breath. Janet, he managed. I'm not here for you, I said. I took the open seat at the far end of the table, opposite him. Someone from Montrose cleared their throat. Shall we begin? The next 40 minutes were everything I'd waited for. They walked through the timeline: date of initial licensing, date of expiration, lack of renewal, continued usage of proprietary architecture. Richard tried to claim ambiguity, said the clause was buried, that it was never meant to be a hard stop, that Janet Flo, he called it that for the first time ever, was a collaborative product. Nathan's lawyer calmly read Clause 12 aloud, emphasizing exclusive rights retained by originator and renewal required in writing annually. Then the Fort Way rep added flatly, "We've suspended data processing until this is resolved. Any delay puts your federal compliance at risk." Richard turned to the board, desperate now. "We can fix this. We just need Janet to confirm temporary license continuity until we sort the legal details." Eyes turned toward me. I opened the folder, pulled out the single page, slid it across the table. "This is the new licensing agreement," I said. "Signed this morning with Greystone Partners, effective immediately. The license is exclusive, non-transferable, non-retroactive." The room dropped 10 degrees. One of the board members actually said, "Jesus Christ." Richard stared at the page like it had teeth. You can't do that. This company, your name is still on our systems. It won't be after today," I said. "My attorney will be sending a formal cease and desist by end of day. Continued use of any part of the system after 5 p.m. will constitute willful infringement. Penalties apply." Montrose's lawyer nodded once. "That's sufficient. Our contract with Atwell Group is now suspended." Fort Way followed. Argo said they'd be reevaluating immediately. I stood. "Thank you all for your time." I didn't look at Richard again. Didn't need to. The board had already stopped listening to him, because now the only person in the room with leverage was me. Richard didn't speak for a full 15 seconds. His eyes scanned the page like it might transform into something else if he stared hard enough. It didn't. At the top, Greystone Partners LLC. Below, exclusive licensing agreement, Janet Flo operational workflow v3.1 and derivatives. Signed by me, dated, witnessed, legally bulletproof. He looked up slowly, but the room was already ahead of him. Montrose's lead counsel closed his binder. "This invalidates your operating framework. As of now, our data feeds are suspended." Fort Way's compliance officer followed suit. "Pending independent review, all future disbursements are frozen." A third client rep whispered to their associate, already pulling out their phone, likely to draft the termination notice. I could see it click behind Richard's eyes, that slow, dawning horror of a man realizing the trap wasn't set today. It had been sitting there for years, right under his coffee-warmed, ego-stuffed nose. "Janet," he said hoarsely, reaching for tone but finding none, "this is your company too. You built this with us." "You know," I said, calm as a scalpel. "I built the system, you used it, and now you don't have the right to anymore." Nathan, the Greystone CEO, finally leaned forward, broke his quiet. "We've prepared a formal cease and desist, effective immediately. You are to halt all operations involving the Janet Flow system and its derivatives. Violation of this order constitutes willful infringement, which triggers legal damages on a per-instance basis. You'll find the breakdown in the packet." He slid the folder across the table. The sound it made, soft, final, might as well have been a death knell. Richard didn't open it, he just slumped. Shoulders slack, tie crooked. The sweat stain blooming across his collar, now large enough to read as surrender. "You don't have an alternative," Nathan continued. "Your staff is untrained. Your data pipeline is built entirely around our licensee's architecture. You can try rebuilding, but you won't meet compliance benchmarks for 6 months. You'll be bankrupt in 3. The silence in the room was a pressure drop. Everyone felt it. The moment where a company ceases to exist, not with fire, not with scandal, but with one missed signature. I gathered my folder, tucked it under my arm. Richard tried once more, voice barely above a whisper. "You could have told me." I paused. "I did," I said, "when I asked for 5%. I left the room without another word. The elevator ride down was quiet. I didn't smile, didn't cry, just breathed. Outside, a black car waited, courtesy of Greystone. By noon, I was stepping into their tower, greeted with a firm handshake, escorted up to the 28th floor. Nathan walked me into my new office, corner suite, glass walls, fresh paint, and a view that overlooked the husk of Atwell's headquarters 3 blocks away. He placed my new badge on the desk. "I hope you like espresso," he said. I nodded once. "Only if it's stronger than regret." He chuckled, then paused at the doorway. "You know," he said, hand on the frame, "I was there at that gala 3 years ago. Heard him call you replaceable during his speech." He looked back at me, "Not anymore." Then he shut the door. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit him.